Hi guys, I'm Drake York. Welcome to this edition of Dirt Talk with Drake York, and I've got Howard Tarter on the show. It's good to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Today's show will be presented by Motorwear International and Tommy Hurst's Vintage Race Cars. So, Howard Tarter here on the show. So Howard, I know you're heavily involved, of course, with the David Tarter Memorial. How did that race come about?
Well, when David lost his life in a pit accident at Silver Dollar Speedway, it just sort of gathered momentum on its own. All the drivers and the people who were involved in sprint cars at Silver Dollar at that time all got together and decided that the following week would be a memorial race for David. Terrific. I mean, wonderful. And it was a very impromptu, very quickly put together. So after that, we thought, well, that would be kind of nice to have as an annual event. And to make it sort of a worthwhile enterprise, we decided to make it a fundraiser. We went through the nonprofit process through the North Valley Community Foundation so that we could gather donors who would get the benefit of a tax deduction for helping us out. And it just kind of grew from there. The second year was bigger, last year was bigger, this year is going to be bigger still.
What does it mean to your friends and family for this race?
Well, it's an emotional thing, of course. In ways, it's a little upsetting because it brings back the entire process of what happened. But in a lot of other ways, it's very uplifting, a little bit inspiring sometimes. It's a great emotional release. Just to know that what we're trying to do is turn what was a very tragic thing into a positive for a lot of people. Apparently, according to the hospital and the Racers Benevolent Fund, we've helped quite a few people just with the modest money we've been able to raise so far, and hopefully it's just more and bigger and better from here.
How many years has the David Tarter Memorial been going?
This will be the fourth one, but it's actually the third fundraiser. So, yeah, 4 years. Hard to believe.
We know this race is a very big race already. As the years go on, do you think it will become a bigger, more prestigious race?
Well, we hope so. That's been the goal all along, to make it kind of a cornerstone event in the sprint car season. There's obviously the Mini Gold Cup and there's the Gold Cup Race of Champions. I think probably the other cornerstone on the schedule is the Dave Bradway. We would like this to be another one of those that the drivers look forward to, that spectators mark on their calendar as something they want to come and see, and we hope to build it from there.
What's different about this race from any other race in Northern California?
Well, from one aspect, we try to make it a race that the drivers want to come to. I'm not saying that we don't care what the spectators think, but the drivers are what make the show. So we want to attract more of the best drivers that we can, and in order to do that, we need to do some things for the drivers that maybe other races don't think about doing. We want to, as the thing grows, we want to be able to pay more money to start. We would like to pay more and deeper into the field. And we do some things like heat race prizes that I don't think a lot of other races do. If you run a heat race at our race, you're going to win something. It may not be of great value, it may not be spectacular, but you're going to have the satisfaction of taking something home with you, even if you don't make the show. We think that's important. We've gotten positive feedback with it, and we'd like to continue it.
Who has been helpful in making this race very successful?
I'd have to start with Dennis Gage and the whole staff at Silver Dollar Speedway. They basically turned the place over to us to make it what we want. Troy Hennig is instrumental in arranging all of this stuff. I also have to thank King of the West. They are as supportive as they can be. We've had a couple of bumps in the road, and their support has made all the difference. And then a few people personally, Russell Moore just works himself to death doing all of the graphics and the signs and the advertisements and the media stuff for us. And of course, wouldn't happen without my family. Shelley and Michael and his family are very supportive, and they do their share of the load too.
Switching gears here, how were you introduced to sprint car racing or just racing in general?
That's kind of an odd story. It all started when David was basically having a rough time in school. And we tried all kinds of things, and they worked for a while, but eventually he lost interest and started, falling back into the same old things. It seems like some kids need a carrot to persuade them to do what they need to do. So we attended a race in Red Bluff, and David got all excited. He thought that was it. Boy, I need to get one of these. So we kind of made a deal. All right, we'll see if we can find a used one, but you're going to have to keep your grades up. All of that stuff that goes with it. And it became the best incentive that we ever had. It literally became no homework, Dave. Okay, no race car. That simple. So in the end, by the time his senior year in high school rolled around, David found himself on the honor roll for the first time in his life, because he just knew that he had to do it, so he did it. He came to enjoy it. So that's how it all started. And Michael, of course, because David was doing it, he needed to do it. And they both initially were pretty pathetic, but they gathered some ability as everything went along, and they became pretty fast. And by the end of David's go-kart career, he was a threat to win every time he went out on the racetrack, as was Michael. And the sprint cars seemed to be just the natural progression. It's an open wheel race car with a wing on it, very similar power to weight ratio. So it just seems to be a natural thing. You kind of arrive in go-karts to the point where you're a contender. It's time to think about a sprint car. So we did.
Did you ever think your two sons would ever be able to drive a sprint car or get the opportunity to drive a sprint car?
Not ever. A funny little story. Shane Scott was David's hero growing up. We used to go to the races when David was 5, 6, 7 years old. And the first thing he would do was run over to Shane's car and ask if he could sit in it. So they became acquainted after a little while. Pretty soon, David would start giving him a hard time. You didn't win, Shane. What the heck? So he was poor Shane's worst critic. So years later, and he would always tell me, Dad, one day I'm going to drive one of these. And of course my response was, yeah, right. Sure. Well, sure enough, here we are. Many years later, he's in a sprint car.
How old were David and Michael when they started racing?
They got into this thing pretty late, comparatively. David was 17, Michael was 14. So neither one of them had the benefit of starting off in a lower class to learn the ropes. They jumped right into an open car, and it was a sight. But they got through it and learned quickly.
Were you surprised of David's life, the impact it had on the community?
Very. I'm still, and I'm not surprised because I don't think he was a good person. I'm surprised at the breadth of the people and the diversity of the people that he touched in some way. I hear stories still. Somebody will come up to me and say that they had an encounter with David and they thought what a nice guy he was, and that he somehow had an impact on their life, and they want to share that. It's astounding.
David's life, very great life, which now led to that race. Do you have an idea of how many lives he touched?
No, I don't. I'm continually hearing stories about people on the street that he impacted or had contact with that nobody will ever know about. His nickname was the Pied Piper of Cycleland. He impacted a lot of kids out there. He helped them. He encouraged them. He'd help set up their cars. He'd feel sorry for them when they did badly. He'd encourage them. He'd pat them on the back when they did well. They would come to report to him at his pit about how they did in the race that night.
Car's a bit loose off turn 2, David.
Pretty much. Get it in harder.
Switching gears again here. Let's talk a little bit about the race. Can you provide the fans some info about the David Tarter Memorial for this season?
Yeah, it's Saturday night, June 4th. I believe the gates open at 6. Racing begins at 7. It's a King of the West race. We expect somewhere between 30 and 40 cars, which is a pretty decent turnout. Because it's on the heels of a regular Friday night point show, there'll be a lot of locals racing. We look for a very good turnout and some really exciting racing.
I also know you're doing a raffle. Can you provide some info off of the raffle, and what will the prize be for the winner?
Yeah, as far as the raffle goes, that's our main fundraiser for the hospital and for the Benevolent Fund. We are raffling off a custom painted helmet painted by Shifty Illusions, who's become a very popular helmet painter these days. He's donated that. That's probably the big main prize. We're also raffling off 2 homemade blankets that have David's number and the David Tarter Racing name on them. We have a sweatshirt and a t-shirt signed by the World of Outlaws drivers who are here for Mini Gold Cup. And in the meantime, Rico Abreu donated a shirt signed by him. He said, hey, maybe this will help, so he's donated that. So there are lots of kind of varied prizes. The raffle ticket information can be had at the racetrack, and we hope everybody will participate because that's our main fundraiser. That's where the money comes from.
How do you get tickets to the race and the raffle?
I'm not sure about pre-purchasing tickets for the race, but obviously they're available at the gate on race day. The raffle tickets can be bought right next to the concession stand at the racetrack, both on Friday night and Saturday night. We'll probably be there starting about 4 o'clock, both nights.
Well, you lived with David, so you probably got...
I did.
You raised him.
It was an adventure.
You probably got to see a little bit more of David than we did. Being around David so much, what was your favorite memory of David?
Oh boy, gosh, he kind of took me by surprise with that one. I think probably, and this is a pretty standard ad, but I think probably his high school graduation, because none of us ever thought it would happen. He didn't like school, and the turnaround was remarkable. And all of a sudden there he was in a cap and gown, and it was a pretty emotional time, and very, very, made us proud, because we knew how difficult it was for him. He had ADD, and so some of the schoolwork was difficult for him, but he persevered and he hung in there. And that was kind of how he ran his racing career too. He did a whole lot with very little in the race car, and he had a whole lot more going for him in life than we ever thought. But he did a lot with that too.
Well, I have 2 memories that are tied for first. Being pretty good friends with David Tarter. Probably my favorite though, my dad was leading at, I think it was just a regular points race, no biggie. It's not like the World Outlaws were there or anything, but my dad came up on the back end of David, and he kind of got stuck behind David, and he ran over him, and I think it broke something in the left front. So keep in mind right here, I am 6 years old, around 6 or 7 years old. So David would always save a spot for my dad, or they'd pit right next to each other.
Yeah, always.
And I walked straight past my dad's pit area, and I go up to David, I find him, and like, tears are practically shooting out of my eyes at this point. You are the worstest race car driver I have ever seen. And he's like, yeah, you're right. I'm like, that was supposed to be an insult, mister.
That's what I remember you telling him multiple times on that he sucked. I also remember you going to find him after a particularly good performance and telling him, David, tonight you didn't suck.
Yeah, he liked
He cherished that one. He really liked it. He thought that was very cool.
Yeah, I remember that race. He about won the race. He led over half the race.
Yeah.
And then another one of my favorite memories of David, it was my dad's 40th birthday party, and it looked like a regular children's birthday party times like 15. There's so many people here, and I have this table in my room with a lot. I collect die-cast sprint cars and play with them. So David came into my room and he started playing with me with my sprint cars. So that's one memory I'll always cherish.
That's nice. That's very nice. And
Yeah.
that was him.
Yeah, that night he didn't suck, fans. Remember that. I found it on YouTube just the other day. I'm like, David didn't suck that race. No, but he did really good in that race. He was always fun to watch inside the race car. And that's going to wrap up our show today. Thank you to Phil McNally's Racing's, Napa Auto Care, and Hunt's Race World. And make sure to come to the Dave Bradway Jr. Memorial. That is June 4th, correct?
The David Tarter Memorial.
Yes.
Yes, June 4th.
And then on June the 3rd, we have Friday night sprint car racing. So if you can make it 2 nights, that would be amazing.
Thursday.
And
Thursday. Kyle Hurst.
oh, and Thursday we have 2016 Dave Bradway Jr. Memorial winner Kyle Hurst on the show, so you don't want to miss that. And actually, on that day, I will be doing double duty. I will be speaking at my school and then coming back here to talk sprint car racing with Kyle Hurst, so you don't want to miss the Kyle Hurst show. Oh, thank you, Howard.
My pleasure. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
You're getting good at this.